Wednesday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show coming at you here live from the UDL. Noah and Lizzie in. Going to be an extended, or it's going to be an abbreviated show this morning. Trying to extend the content today, depending on if we can corral everybody and get everybody back around here. We will have Nick Underhill at some point today. He and I have talked. It'll be some point after lunch. Rohan is in and around. He was supposed to be here at 8:30 this morning. Would have been here at 8:30 this morning. I got to cut out for an 8 o'clock meeting up at the school.
So yesterday was unfinished business.
Yesterday was good.
On the table.
Yesterday was good. Here's what it opened up. It opened up that they're having a school board meeting this morning, and I don't know if they intently or almost accidentally mentioned that there was a school board meeting. And credit to Jordan's mother, who hopped in like boom. Is that open to parents? And you could see him kind of like look around the table and kind of saying like, is it open to parents?
It usually is.
And the principal was like, yeah, it's tomorrow. And at that point, both of us just like sharks. We'll be there. We'll be there. And then we mentioned to the text group that there's a school board meeting today and that we were going to show up. And the next thing you know, we've got the cavalry, dude. I think we're going to be very well represented this morning. It's just we're showing our voice. I think that there's a little bit of doubt maybe within how loud this voice is in the concern for the protocols and the mandate. So we're going to have to cut out just a little bit early this morning. We will talk to Brody Miller from The Athletic coming up here. But as we said, we will have content for you all throughout today. We'll talk to Chef Jean-Paul Bourgeois at some point, but Rohan is going to come in and give us somewhat of a game week look here at Central Michigan, how and what he thought of the McNeese game and having a couple of days to digest it. And we'll talk about what our plans are this Friday night as we'll get out and watch a little high school football here in the capital city as there's some pretty good matchups coming up. But as we said, we'll talk to Brody coming up 7:30 this morning. Coach Ed Orgeron's radio show from TJ Ribs tonight. Noah will be over there representing the show and see what Coach O has to say, as it seems like every time he opens his mouth here over the last couple of weeks and months that it's been some type of news, whether it be bad PR or him updating you on the roster or what's going on with the program. So it's going to be interesting to hear what Coach O has to say today here in midweek of the matchup for Central Michigan. Remember, daily we're brought to you by Go Chevrolet, online at GEAUXchevrolet.com. Get in touch with Lee Carney, Nick Richard, and everybody down there in LaPlace, Louisiana for a brand new car. And if you're looking for a used model right here in Baton Rouge at Go Express Auto Sales on the corner of Florida Boulevard and Sherwood Forest. Our coffee is Majestic Coffee. DeliciousSips.com. Brody Miller will be compliments of Metropolitan Health Group on our phone line. Our water is brought to you by True Blue Water. And the spice of the show is Papa Earl's, 30% less sodium, and you can pick it up at Calandro's, High Neighbor, Rouse's, all over East Baton Rouge and at your local spots for Papa Earl's spices. How are we feeling over there, Bruce?
Oh, man, great. Good day. Great. I feel bad for this. The principal says the difference between a yes and a no can change your day drastically.
And I could see that he was on the line. It was like, which way are you going to go?
Because if you say no,
which way I'm going to call Sel. Yeah, right. So, I'm going to call Sel. How is the school board not open to the parents?
How have y'all never asked before?
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's fair.
Right.
Fair. But now that it's on the table, it's open, right?
Yep.
So we'll be there this morning.
Pitchfork and all.
No. Hey, man. Hopefully we can do this without any type of confrontation. Nobody wants any. I think we all are pulling in the same direction. I hope, right? I mean, we all just want the educated.
For sure. Yeah.
So just want our kids to be taught.
Have you ever been to this before?
I've not.
Has anyone?
I doubt it.
Okay, so they weren't open to the public, and he just said maybe this one.
No, I think this is something that is probably open to the public,
but nobody ever goes.
Nobody wants to go. Okay. You know what I mean? Because there's just not a lot of issues that really care.
Like this,
that you're this passionate about. But we'll see. I'll have my first this morning. Looking forward to talking to Brody Miller because there is a lot happening right now. Miller spoke to Don Jackson, who is an Alabama-based attorney that is representing John Emery in this academic ineligibility case, and told Brody Miller that he's pretty confident that Emery could be reinstated. And he's got a really good write-up for it over at The Athletic that we will talk to him, obviously, about some of the details here. But as we said, this is the same attorney that Christian Fulton hired a couple of seasons ago when he got reinstated and was battling the NCAA on some eligibility issues that he was dealing with. Now, that was a failed drug test that had some real gray area in the reporting and some of the things that happened in the aftermath of the testing. And it'll be interesting to see what happens here from a academic eligibility standpoint. Still, like when you dig around and ask questions on just what in the hell is going on? How does this happen? I know that over the last couple of days, there's been conflicting reports on whether he was enrolled in the wrong class, whether he was possibly charged with cheating, and all that stuff has been disputed. But either way, and I got a little bit of insight on it, but I think it's hovering around the same storylines as people were talking about. It's something with a summer class that wasn't accredited from the NCAA standpoint, therefore was making him not a full-time student, or just did not have enough hours to be deemed eligible. From the legal standpoint, we'll get more on Brody Miller on the stance of Emery and some of the ways that he believes, or the Emery camp believes, that they can get back on the field as soon as possible. And as we said, Don Jackson, the lawyer for Emery, is stating that he believes that there is a shot to get Emery back on the field here pretty soon.
So if they knew he was going to be 3 credit hours short going into summer, because you can only take, I think, 6 hours during the summer. I know they put a cap on it, so you can't really make up that much time. If they knew he was going to be 3 credit hours short going into the summer, they should have been doing this. Wouldn't you have looked into this a long time ago?
Well,
because I feel like they says that they appealed and they tried to get a hardship, so they knew this was going on way before UCLA.
And I think that even goes into the Trey Bradford situation. I mean, I think a lot of getting him back was the realization that they were not going to have John Emery. Staying in touch with him and kind of keeping the door open, keeping and recruiting him, and kind of showing him where he fit in is kind of goes hand in hand to this thing has kind of been brewing for a while. The more people you ask around up there, the more people are kind of, pointing in different directions, saying it was down the hall or it was that guy. Ultimately, this, in my opinion, is another bruise and black eye on the regime of Ed Orgeron. I mean, I think every time seemingly you have looked up over the past year and a half, it seems like something is out of whack, right? Whether it is, the public relations, which we have beat into the ground on just how he has mismanaged that, or, somebody sent a link and Lloyd posted it into the document this morning, and we were talking a little bit about it during our production meeting before we went on the air this morning. The amount of attrition that this program has seen since the 2018 class, it is almost, you have to see it to believe it.
It's staggering.
It's over 50 players. I mean, it's 52 players when you look at the attrition that this program has seen. And I understand that there is a story behind all of them, and that that they're not all in one box, and it doesn't have the same issue for every player. But at some point, you got to look up and see that, out of the 2018 draft class, or out of the 2018 recruiting class, the guys that are still no longer here, guys like Chris Curry and Cole Smith, who was a 3-star center who now plays at Mississippi State, Dare Rosenthal, who's now the starting left tackle for the Kentucky Wildcats. Trevez Moore was a defensive end on this defensive line. Keenan Jones was a big safety out of Berwick that's no longer here. Nelson Jenkins was a defensive lineman. You look at the 2019 class. I mean, the names on the 2019 class that's still no longer in this program that would be juniors right now are guys like Marcel Brooks, Mo Hampton, Siaka. Was it Ika?
I think it's Ika.
Ika, but those are all guys that made plays for you.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
Those three.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, just off the top, those three guys. TK McClendon was a tight end. You know, I mean, in a spot that you would love to have TK McClendon at right now. I mean, you know, you just look at some of the other names that are not here. I mean, Arik Gilbert obviously stands out. Justin Thomas is a defensive tackle. Ray Thornton was a guy that was going to play the offensive line for you. TJ Finley was a guy that was going to be some depth in the quarterback room and a potential starter. I mean, the attrition that this program has faced over the last 3 seasons has been staggering. I mean, really, when you look at the struggles on the field, it makes a lot of sense. Hell, they don't have any players. I mean, the fact that they are competing like they are with the lack of depth and star power that they are missing on this team and on this roster is, I mean, it is humbling to look at the list of players that LSU has lost out of the program since 2018. And I know that there is going to be turnover every single year in college football. It's almost the unsaid demon of the sport, where every single year you're going to have to lose players on your roster to add the ones that you want. But LSU's lost a lot of the guys that they need to be competitive and stay, you know, really from a program standpoint on track. You know, that's why I believe you're riding this roller coaster year in, year out of high highs and success, but then dipping way down into the valley of failure and setback, because you just can't keep the roster, man. I mean, you can't keep it. You can't keep it functioning. And again, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, or whether it's his fault or not, when it comes down to each story, the head coach of the program during that time period is Ed Orgeron. And that, to me, is another tremendous mark on his tenure here. And the more and more you say these storylines out loud and put them in their own lane, I mean, what else are you going to have to deal with this guy? I mean, he's being deposed in 2 sexual assault cases at this point right now with the Title IX stuff. The public relations is just blunder after blunder. You get in front of him and you tell him, hey, man, you can't be doing this type of stuff. And you look up 24 hours before the first game of the season, and he's parading around downtown Los Angeles with a new blonde. And then, 2 hours before kickoff, he's in the face of a fan calling him out for the color of his shirt. To the John Emery stuff, where your 5-star running back is academically ineligible because whatever the story is, whatever it is, right? It's got to be something around academics, and it seems like that he was doing something that he thought was going to count for him one way, but it didn't. That's now happening. He's ineligible. To the amount of guys that they have lost over the last 3 seasons is, I mean, what are we doing? Like, I mean, if you're a part of the LSU administration and you're looking at just the overall product and see the guys fleeing the program, just one after another, 52 players since 2018. I mean, 52 players, man.
It's kind of incredible they've been able to string this thing together the way they have. Like, when you think about it,
that's what I'm saying. The more impressive part is that they're still competitive to a degree.
Right.
Right? Like, I mean, it's just, it is.
But it's all players that should be out there playing. That's the wild thing. Like, obviously, you saw what happened with Dare Rosenthal. That would be great to have. But John Emery, Marcel Brooks, Maurice Hampton, like Sika Ika, Dante Starks, Devonta Lee, all these players that you got in and you were excited.
But Devonta Lee's still here.
Yeah, but
they thought he was leaving for a minute.
He thought he was leaving for a minute.
Right.
And so, but I'm just saying, all of those people you thought would be absolutely be contributors, and they were when they played. Like you're missing an entire freshman class from 2018 or 2019, excuse me.
And how has it not affected recruiting now? Like, how are we still getting recruits and they're looking at other people and saying, "Well, they're
what's going on?"
Leaving.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that part of it, but I got to imagine that there is some type of curiosity from the recruits on just like, how is this happening? Go Poke says the sissy blue shirt was not as bad as you make it out to be, Jordy. In a vacuum, it was not, Sissy Poke. I mean, if you just look at that on its own, it's not. But the collected amount of missteps, with that being one of them, and the last one, I'm telling you, that to me is going to be what gets Orgeron. That to me is what has turned his bosses off more than the product on the field. And I mean, we can all agree the product on the field over the last year and 2 games has been really below average. But, I mean, does anybody have any confidence that you're ever going to win anything of significance ever again under Orgeron? Because I sure don't. As an LSU, somebody who covers the program, or somebody who has watched this program succeed at so many high levels, I mean, the more and more you get away from 2019, you realize that is so much of the outlier and so much the one that stands out from really the overall body of work with Orgeron, that, you know, I mean, it is the every squirrel finds a nut type of analogy. I mean, you know, you're in it long enough and you're around college football long enough, you play the numbers, you're going to have a really successful year. Ed Orgeron's been around college football for more than 30 years, 35 years. He just happened to hit lightning in a bottle with Joe Burrow, and it was just almost the perfect storm of a team with coaches and players and guys that had been there for a while, and the way that it all worked out, where 2019 was magical. But it was directed and led, obviously, by dominant people. Joe Burrow, Joe Brady, Dave Aranda. Leaders that were in that room, Grant Delpit, Rashard Lawrence. I mean, the attrition, when we were talking about that this morning, I mean, I'm like, what else do you have to deal with Ed Orgeron? I mean, what else is there? Guy can't, I mean, he can't even give you the status update of his 5-star running back when you give him a press release to read at a Monday press conference. He can't handle the public relations of the job. The on-the-field product is falling further and further away from acceptance every week that you watch it. And then, oh, by the way, he can't keep a roster together.
And that's kind of what his forte was. Like, you can recruit all you want and get all these guys in the building, but is that more of the battle being able to keep them on campus? Especially now in the era of the transfer portal. Like, you could recruit all you want, right, but once they get a whiff of what maybe the football program's actually like, because recruiting and day one of camp are far two different things. Like, you're coddled, you're loved, they tell you everything you want to hear, and whenever they're trying to get you in the building. But once you're there, you're just a part of the team, brother.
Sure.
You're a number.
Well, I mean, the de-recruitment process is almost sometimes as tough as the recruiting process, right? I mean, to coach out the 5-star is almost as difficult as trying to land the 5-star. But you have to be able to do that. You know, I mean, I'm not using Alabama and Nick Saban in a comparable reference, because it's not even close as far as where the programs are right now. But I mean, the Jaleel Billingsley story speaks for itself. That's a 5-star tight end that was trying to buck the system at Alabama, and Saban used, I mean, a great example in teaching him a lesson. And that guy's dad came out and said, look, he's not going anywhere. I mean, that's why he's at Alabama. That's why he's there. I mean, because of the leadership. And I think that shows you, it's another great example of just how far away LSU is from their competition.
Well, and a lot of that comes with winning, right? Nick Saban can get away with that, or can almost spurn a 5-star and not run the risk of having him, like, he can play the long game with the recruits because he knows, well, I got plenty in the sack. But if you're at LSU and look at what the hoops they tried to go through to get Arik Gilbert back on campus, not only because they thought it was for the best of his well-being, but because they needed him on the football field. Like, Arik Gilbert seems to be one of a massive hole in what this offense could look like. Because if you had somebody that could stay in and be a tight end, and he could block, whether he liked it or not, he was good at it. And to have somebody like that can play that Thad Moss role where you can crack a little bit, then leak, and then also put him out as a wide receiver is what this offense seems to be missing. Because they're trying to find it with Cole Taylor and Jack Besh as like a duo, but neither one of them can really stand on the end line and block and stay in the block if you need them to.
It's just crazy to see. I mean, the turnover, it's crazy to see the mismanagement. It's unbelievable to see just how fast the fall has been from 2019. And it should be a cautionary tale to coaches and people all over the country that are in this position on how fast you can lose it, on how fast it can go, how fast you can burn the equity. I mean, for the section of the people like, we were just talking to, Go Pokes was saying that, the sissy blue comment is not a big deal. For people that don't understand the public relations that comes along and the responsibility with this gig, this is a $100 million company. LSU Football is a $100 million company. And Ed Orgeron, as he painted himself when he was trying to get the job as a CEO, is in charge of not only the on-the-field product and the way that the program performs from a football standpoint, but also the brand management of LSU Football. And if you don't understand the wax on the brand that LSU has taken while Orgeron has been in charge, then I'm not sure if you're ever going to see it, because this is the responsibility that comes in running a business and a company of this magnitude. It doesn't matter if it's football, it doesn't matter if it's furniture making, whatever it is. The CEO in the position of that is in charge of executing the production of the product. And in this position, Ed Orgeron he is charged with putting a football team on the field that he has failed in doing so at a high level over the past year and a half. But he's also in charge and responsible for keeping the brand up to standard and making sure that brand is protected 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without any apology. And he has failed miserably. He is a cautionary tale. He will be in the coach's textbook for up-and-coming coaches on how not to handle success in a big-time job. Don't parade your groupies around town with you. Don't take pictures in the bed while you're leading a $100 million company. Quit jogging with your shirt off on the beach. I know you may not understand that, but it's a bad look. Stopping on River Road and taking pictures with every sorority girl while you're jogging with your shirt off, it's not the look that the LSU head football coach, that's not what the position called. You can do that as a defensive line coach. You can do that as a recruiting coordinator. You can't do that making the $7.5 million a year to lead the program. And on top of all that, you can't keep the roster together? And the product looks like this? And you're being deposed in 2 sexual harassment cases in the Title IX stuff? I mean, at what point do you say, I mean, look, man, we're going to have to make another call to private money, but it's just, this is too big of a headache. Brody Miller had a good conversation with the lawyer at the center of the John Emery case here, and it's the same attorney in Don Jackson that Christian Fulton was using a couple of years back. And we'll ask him what he learned in his conversation at Jackson. Jackson seems to believe that Emery could be reinstated and put back in here pretty soon. Daily, we're brought to you by Edward Jones. Remember Daniel Newman, daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. He is our financial advisor. Let him help you today. He's been great to work with, great leadership and great direction in helping out with the finances, whether it's been investments or helping out with the 401k. If you've got questions and work within the plant industry, if you're over at Dow, BASF, any of those plants around here in South Louisiana, Exxon, you can get in touch with Daniel, and he's got great experience on helping out people within that trade. Daniel.Newman@edwardjones.com. Daniel.Newman@edwardjones.com. Get in touch with Daniel Newman today. Let him be your financial advisor. He's located out in central Louisiana, so if you want to stop in and see him. He's located right across from Stabs, but you can email him. Easy to get in touch with him. Daniel.Newman@edwardjones.com. More on the John Emery situation next here with Brody Miller. Give me 30 seconds to get him on the line and get reset here, and we'll talk to Brody Miller of The Athletic about the latest on Emery's status as LSU will host Central Michigan this Saturday night. Hebert's Specialty Meats, home to the finest boudin in South Louisiana. 2 spots right here in Baton Rouge and out in Prairieville. Stop in and see them in the Dutchtown Shopping Center on Highway 73 or right here in Baton Rouge on Jefferson Highway. Online, hebertsmarkets.com, and they're all over social media. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on Instagram. Hebert's combines perfect seasoning with that authentic Cajun flavor. Find out for yourself. Baton Rouge on Jefferson Highway and in Prairieville on Highway 73. hebertsmarkets.com. Go Chevrolet is proud to announce Go Express Auto Sales, the new used car lot located in the capital city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at 11522 Florida Boulevard. Go Express Auto Sales is online at goexpressautosales.com, or you can search them on Facebook and social media at Go Express Auto Sales, the newest addition to the family of Go Chevrolet. Remember, Go Chevrolet is located down in LaPlace, Louisiana, but now welcoming aboard Go Express, the new used car lot located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at 11522 Florida Boulevard. Welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, as we will be a quick session this morning. We got to get out of here for an 8 o'clock meeting, so we will be back with you throughout the day and have some content for you. We're going to talk New Orleans Saints with Nick Underhill. At some point today, we'll have a social media post just kind of giving you an alert that it'll be coming out, but you can always find it on our YouTube station. You can always find it on our Facebook page, anywhere that you check out the Jordy Culotta Show, jordyculottashow.com. As you know, we always weekly link up with Brody Miller, who's over at The Athletic, and he covers LSU, does a phenomenal job, but he has brought some insight to this John Emery situation that seems to be the storyline this week, hovering over the LSU football program. We'll hear from Ed Orgeron tonight over at his radio show over at TJ Ribs, but it looks like the latest from John Emery is that he has hired an attorney in Don Jackson out of Alabama. This is the same attorney that Christian Fulton retained a couple of years back to regain his eligibility at LSU while he was suspended for totally different reasons. We bring in Brody Miller to the conversation this morning from The Athletic. It is good to talk to you as always. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, man. How's it going? Never a dull moment on this good old beat.
Never a dull moment. We were just kind of talking about that coming in, and in our opening segment here, how it has just been amazing to be on the LSU beat for the last year, because every time you look up, it's something new. And go ahead.
I was going to say, even on like the slow years, like 2018 or something, there's still just nonsense happening every 2 weeks. There's really nothing like it.
What do you make of the latest? What do you make of this John Emery situation after you had a very in-depth conversation with his attorney, Don Jackson?
I think it's something where it's clear something might have been, messed up might be a stretch, but there's clearly some issue with the waiver application that, I think LSU thought that was going to be a pretty easy, deal right before the season. And obviously, I think you said in your show yesterday, like, none of this was news to LSU that he was dealing with this fight, but I think they did think they had this waiver situation figured out until briefly before the game. And I think it was a surprise. And I think, his attorney, Don Jackson's case is that, and again, we'll get more to the overall situation, but John Emery did have quite a bit of hardship in 2020, and this is not me having my own opinion on, what happened in his fall credits in 2020, why he was behind. I mean, that's not for me to say, but his case is more that he had quite a bit of hardship in 2020, and quite frankly, there are a lot of players who do get these, COVID waivers or hardship waivers that I think they're arguing for far less hardship, for lack of a better term, than John Emery actually has. Now, Jackson even said on the record, he's like, I have had many clients with far less mitigating circumstances than Emery get reinstated. So I think he does have optimism that he can get him back, whether it be next week or sometime after that. But we'll see, because these are just really tricky situations.
Yes, as Don Jackson told you, it's damn near immoral to punish a young man who is going through the difficulty he has gone through over the past 18 months. What did you learn about Emery and some of the things that he's been going on off the field?
Yeah, so obviously, he did fall quite far behind after fall 2020. And, as we said, he had a lot going on with his life, with his stepfather very, very ill for most of the year, his grandmother dying, his mother got sick, all those things. And on top of, I think, what we've learned, most student athletes having a pretty tough time during the pandemic. So that is out of their defense. And what ended up, what at least Jackson is saying, I can't really confirm most of these things because LSU is not going to divulge, student records. But from what Jackson is saying, Emery actually had a strong academic summer this summer to make it up, but he fell 3 credit hours short because basically there is a limitation on how many credit hours, there's a limit on what all students can take, per semester. And I think student athletes might have even other limitations. I'm not too sure on that, but yeah, so there was a limitation, and his argument is the only reason he fell 3 credit hours short were rules outside of his control, and they will be arguing that. Now, what they'll be doing is they'll be filing for what they consider, they basically will be submitting new information, which is further explaining his hardship, and hoping for what they call a reconsideration. And what makes it kind of interesting to me is that what they're doing right now is not technically an appeal. They are sending it to the NCAA staff to then have them make a decision on their own, and then if they deny it again, then they can appeal. So it's almost an interesting, I don't want to call it a loophole, but kind of an interesting thing where it's actually creating a situation where they can then appeal again to an appeal committee. So, Jackson remains pretty optimistic, and some people in the LSU camp also remain optimistic. They can turn this around, but we'll see.
Do you think that you see Trey Bradford on Saturday night?
Yeah, I haven't heard much about how he's looked necessarily, so I won't lie to you there. But Ed Orgeron did say yesterday he thinks he'll be eligible and available to play. And yeah, I think you know as well as I, the run game is a little stale right now. And Ty Davis-Price, somebody who has been a productive player for going on 3 years now, it's just maybe he's averaging, I think, 3.19 yards a carry, and it's not exactly opening things up when you have an offense. And of course, you and I both will be the first to say offensive line is not creating much for any of the running backs right now. But I think there is an argument you could make that when you're in that situation, you need to get a running back in there who is more of a creator and a playmaker than the guy who's going to do his job perfectly and all that. And so I think there's an argument that I think you'll really see them turn to those freshmen more and more as the season goes on. Armani Goodwin and Corey Kiner. Armani Goodwin might not play this week, so it does really open things up for Trey Bradford. And again, I don't know exactly where Trey Bradford's at with how he's been his 2 weeks back at practice, all that stuff, but he definitely does kind of fit that mold of a speedy playmaker who might be able to create more. So if he's ready, I think they'll be really inclined to play him more.
Yeah, hated that for Goodwin. It looked like he was ready to pop there after that toss on that early carry in the game. It was good to see him back, but I hear the same things you do, that probably going to be tough to get him on the field Saturday night. We talked a lot about the offensive line in the offseason. Did you imagine that they would struggle this mightily early on?
Wait, I got to jump in with something I just thought of. I think I spent all spring on your show making my hot take pick that Trey Bradford would win the starting running back job through spring, and then he transferred a week later. And I've been sitting on that L for like 5 months. Now he's back. What an incredible win that would be if that actually comes mid-season. I think I would deserve a statue for the greatest take ever.
That is the insight you get right here on the Jordy Culotta show, man.
I knew this was going to happen. I knew it.
The boomerang starting effect.
He'll come back.
That's right.
Suck at freezing cold takes. I was right all along.
That's exactly right. Brody Miller from The Athletic, get your subscription today. But why the O-line? I mean, because we talked about this. We knew that they were going to struggle. I did not anticipate them struggling as mightily as they did. I thought Saturday night was very much a concerning piece of film for the front on LSU's offense.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Like you said, we always knew, like, I don't know what's going to happen with the depth. I thought it was going to be an okay line, but they're suddenly playing. And again, 2 games in. I always try to live by the rule that you don't really know what a team is till week 4, all that stuff. But still, I don't think I ever imagined them taking a step back from 2020. Not that they were awful in 2020, but now they are really looking like one of the worst lines in the SEC through 2 games. So yeah, that is a huge red flag. And again, yeah, you can make the argument they were without 3 starters Saturday, but I don't think anybody in that entire building is going to sit here and make that defense, because that means your LSU and your 7th, 8th, and 9th offensive linemen or whatever they were can't block an FCS team. That's a problem. And I think I always make the rule that I'm probably not going to be suddenly glowing about anything about LSU after a game against an FCS team. But if things look bad, that's when you actually should be double concerned. So yeah, I think you really do have to be worried there. The pass protection's the problem. The run game is, I would argue, even more of a problem somehow. And what's tough is, I think one factor in these struggles, quite frankly, is that, yeah, they were banged up all camp, and they didn't ever get time together. It's something we saw in 2018 pretty clearly. Well, they're still banged up, so that's not going to get fixed anytime soon. And the hope, if you wanted to be an optimist, was, hey, these young guys are going to get more time now. Maybe they'll step up, but they just flat out didn't look ready Saturday. So it is a troubling situation. And again, they could easily improve in the next few weeks, but right now it's a major concern.
Max's headspace. Where do you gauge him right now, coming out of the first 2 weeks?
I'll go back to I probably mentioned this to you before. I'll go back to a conversation I had with a coach about, like 2 weeks before the season. And this coach was saying, like, hey, I'm high on Max Johnson, but, the offensive line struggles in camp. You're starting to see him get a little, just shaky in the pocket, and that's something he's going to have to work through. And this coach, said, hey, that's something that does get worked out, but it will get worked out eventually, but it's a thing. And I think that coach kind of nailed it on the head, and we saw that exactly happening week 1 against UCLA. I wouldn't say we saw as much Saturday, but, we still saw a little bit against McNeese. And it's tough because I think we're in this weird zone with Johnson where I don't think there's no thing in these last 2 games that I would inherently blame on him, maybe other than the brutal interception against UCLA. But it's not like these things fall on him, but he's not overcoming things. And that's kind of a thing where it's not maybe fair to blame him for that, but it is something to watch where you look at that first half against McNeese, I would argue Johnson looked pretty solid. He was making some great throws under pressure, and guys were dropping passes. He was doing some stuff. But then later you did see him one-hop some of those passes. You did see some of those kind of shaky things. So I still am kind of in I'm not down on Johnson. I'm not sold on Johnson. I'm somewhere in the middle of, I think these next 2 games are going to tell us more, but I still think he's a solid quarterback.
To continue the conversation with Max Johnson, it just seems like he's terrified to take any shots down the field because he doesn't want to turn the ball over. I don't know if it's because he doesn't trust his defense exactly, but at some point you're going to have to push the ball down the field. When will that become an impetus on this offense? Because if you look at his numbers, even McNeese, he was 13 of 19 at halftime for 104 yards. I know he threw 2 touchdowns, but those are things that it's just evident you're not stretching the ball down the field, and it makes you very one-dimensional, especially when you can't run the football.
No, I think that's a very valid thing, because you're right. They have not really attacked down there. When they have, it hasn't exactly worked out. And again, I always try to couch these comments with, I'm not a film guru, so I won't pretend to know if there like were openings he wasn't taking. I don't truly know, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right that has to be a little bit of a thing, and it's weird because okay, you look at we had some we have some great advanced analytics we use, and in the UCLA game, it was almost like the problem was, okay, you look at the Florida game in 2020, he was so smart at knowing when to dump it off under pressure, and that's what was a big part of why people were sold by him. He looked like a veteran. And then against UCLA, his depth of target under pressure was actually 4 yards greater, 11-7, which is a massive difference. He was actually trying to do more under pressure, but still, and to get your point, but he wasn't taking shots downfield. He was trying to hit these kind of medium routes under pressure. So that's an answer that doesn't answer your question at all, but I think it's just a weird thing I'm trying to figure out because he's not quite doing the dump-offs that I think they would want him to do and, just be safe under pressure. But he's also not attacking downfield, so he's, not exactly checking either box, if that makes sense. And I wonder if that's almost a concerning thing. And last thing I'll say is it is interesting that the literal first thing LSU did when Garrett Nussmeier came in was attack downfield 3 out of 4 plays.
He did.
So I do think there's something to what you're asking.
And, he put 3 dimes on him.
Just let it rip.
He put 3 on the money. What's your feeling on Wednesday of this game Saturday night? I think a lot of people are kind of speculative of Jim McElwain and his offense. I think when you look at that Missouri game, you see that they played him tight. What's the feel early on here on this matchup coming this weekend versus Central Michigan?
Yeah, I've gotten a real vibe from people in the program that they're like, hey, this is not a game we can overlook, and this is a game you got to worry about. There's actual, kind of concern might not be the right word, but hey, the way we've been playing, this could be a tricky game. I think that's something people should really keep in mind where, yes, they are a well-coached team has been the main thing everyone in that building has said to me. They're a team that just kind of knows what they're doing. They don't have any, they're just, every position just seems kind of like they know what they're doing. There's no, one standout necessarily. And like you said, in that Missouri game, they ran the ball really well against an SEC defense. And Jacob Sirmon, I believe, threw 2 picks, but he also moved the ball. So I don't know exactly how to grade him, but more importantly, they moved the ball, and I think that's going to be tough because LSU's run defense has, through a few games, been maybe one of my main question marks on the team. Where I do buy the pass rush, I actually do. I think that pass rush is fantastic and great at LSU, but that run defense is a different thing, and I think that's going to be a real test for them against Central Michigan this week, heading into SEC play. So I think the spread's 20-ish, and I think if LSU shows up and plays like we thought they would as of August. Yeah, they should cover that, but I don't think anything we've seen the last 2 weeks would make you think they can. So I think Central Michigan makes this, a 1-2 score game.
Brody Miller, he's got an exclusive with Don Jackson, who is the attorney representing John Emery and his family throughout this appeal process and trying to get Emery back on the field. The read is fantastic over at The Athletic. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. You can catch him weekly here on the Jordy Culotta Show, breaking down LSU, whether we're looking back at last weekend or looking ahead to this week or just covering the storylines throughout game week. He does it as good as anybody in the business. Thank you, Brody. As always, we will see you Saturday, buddy.
Thanks as always, guys. Take care.
You got it, man. There he is, Brody Miller checking in this morning. Good stuff with Don Jackson over there at The Athletic. If you really want to get the latest on what was going on with John Emery and kind of that situation, where it stands, where it is, what Don Jackson thinks ultimately could happen here, as he is representing John Emery, and he kind of gives you some insight over there at The Athletic about what's going on here. As Jackson told Brody, he was enrolled in both sections of summer school, and he was an honor student. That was simply because of the fact he wasn't operating under extreme pressures that he operated under throughout the 2020 COVID season. LSU attempted to get Emery a waiver before the season due to his hardships, but the waiver was declined by the NCAA, and that's where they are in this fight right now with Don Jackson representing the Emerys, or John Emery and his family throughout this appeals process and trying to get it back and trying to get Emery back on the field. And Brody's got an exclusive with him, so good stuff over there. Remember, Daily, we are brought to you by RMB Builders. Our podcast is brought to you by RMB Builders, so if you missed that conversation with Brody, you can always go back and check it out. Compliments of RMB. Rhett Bourgeois and his crew at rmb-builders.com. Online, you can always get a custom-built house. You can get a remodel. If you need a total overhaul and reconstruction, they can help you out there. If you need a commercial plan, they are commercially licensed and can help you out over at RMB Builders, rmb-builders.com. You and I, Lloyd, were talking a little bit about Central Michigan before we jumped into the show this morning, and run game is nice.
Run game's nice.
No quarterback in sight.
Sermon is
he's bad.
Trash.
He's bad.
He's bad.
And he's a bad quarterback.
But the thing about the matchup is, as bad as Sermon is, what Central Michigan does well is what LSU can't stop. Their ability to run the football has got to be your biggest concern at LSU after what you saw at UCLA, especially when you have Greg McElwain coming in, who's not
Greg
McElroy.
Yeah.
Jim McElwain coming in, Sharkman, coming into a place where he's played and coached before.
Yeah.
Like there's not going to be the wide-eyed Central
no intimidation.
Michigan. Right. And I think and he has a good game plan. He showed it multiple times.
What do we anticipate the crowd to be like this week? I mean, everybody got their taste, the taste of it last weekend. What's the weather do? The weather's been terrible here in South Louisiana this week. It's nearly washed out everything that's happening outdoors here early on. I don't know if it's going to stick around for Saturday, but it sure will have an effect on at least the playing surface for as wet as it's going to be around here over the next couple of days, right?
And would you say advantage Central Michigan if they're going to be able to
they run the ball
like that? LSU hasn't really shown the ability to do it. So
they're the team that runs the ball, but I'm wondering what that atmosphere is going to be like next weekend. I mean, the tailgate scene was popping.
Now you get the fraternity row back out on the parade ground.
Well, you don't have to worry about the students. I mean, if
they're
anything,
showing up.
The students deserve a lot of praise after the way that they supported the product last weekend. I mean, from accounts that I was getting inside the game, people were like, I hadn't seen the student section like this since, like Alabama 2012.
It looked like an SEC night game. Like, it was packed to the gills in the student section, so kudos to those guys. But I'm saying, I don't think the weather will affect the student section. It might be one of those things where you have to play into it, get a little dirty, get a little wet. But if the weather notwithstanding, I would say that this game against Central Michigan has been built up to the point where people want to go watch. Yeah. Because McNeese was almost on the other end of the spectrum. You wanted to go just because it was the first home game, go see LSU play and get a win. This is turning into, this could be a make or breaking point in LSU football season, and a point in history where you'll have to watch is this how they lost Ed Orgeron, who just won a national championship 2 years ago. So I think that people are enticed to go to the game. I don't know how much weather plays a factor and if they want to sit there in a poncho and, sweat their insides out.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like inside the stadium. Good stuff from Brody Miller.
I wish I'd asked him about NCAA.
About what?
Just what power do they actually yield? Because I'm sure Don isn't scared of them at all. It's the second time going up against them. And if he feels like he has a strong case.
And he's 1-0 just with his LSU cases.
Just LSU.
Yeah.
And he sounds confident, as a good lawyer should.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this Emery situation over the next couple of days, couple of weeks, to see if he can't regain his status back at LSU. But I do think that the urgency around Trey Bradford was definitely some insight that they knew they were on the losing end of Emery and not going to have him. I think we've been waiting on this announcement. This announcement feels like it's a little past due. Livy Dunn signs a 6-figure NIL deal. She does that with Viore Clothing, which is excellent, by the way. I think I have a Viore shirt on right now. Just kind of athletic wear. You can kind of it's that crossover. You can kind of get away with it, kind of
in public,
right? Like,
anywhere.
Is he professional or is he lazy?
Out, he just leave the gym, or did he just leave the couch?
Did he just wake up?
Yeah. Well, I think that's where these people are making their hay, like Lululemon, Viore Clothing. It's with the men, which is actually shocking because I think the girls go in there to get their pants or what have you, their yoga pants. They may buy a shirt for their significant other, buy some pants, and we're like, dude, these are so comfortable. Where did you get these?
Yeah, they are.
And that's what happened to me. Yeah, I was just like, oh my God, I can wear these in public a little bit.
I mean, the Viore pants are. They're a commitment, man. I mean, I am yeah, I know. But all you need is two.
All you need is two.
All right, I got to cut out of here. I hate to do that because our numbers are so good this morning. But here's the deal. We're coming back throughout the day. I've got Nick Underhill set up, and I've got Rohan set up, Rohan Davey. So we'll talk more LSU football. We'll talk more about the quarterback stuff. We'll get his thoughts on just where LSU is heading into the third playing week of the season. Nick Underhill, obviously lots to talk about with Underhill. The success of the Saints week 1. How did they carry that over to Carolina in week 2? What was the standouts for him? Obviously, Jameis Winston throwing 5 touchdowns. That defense looked so damn good last week versus Green Bay.
The weekend?
I think.
I mean, you would expect the Chiefs to beat the Browns, but they came back and did it in very impressive fashion.
Probably so.
The Saints just mauling Green Bay. I don't think anybody had a 38-3 game.
I mean, I saw a lot of the talking heads were talking more about how Aaron Rodgers lost the game rather than the Saints winning the game, which is fine from a public standpoint or from a just an overall national standpoint. But anybody that watched that game, it wouldn't have mattered if Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers were all coming in first, second, and third quarters. The Saints were going to beat anybody that day. I mean, that was as dominant of a game that I've seen under Sean Payton. I mean, that was so dominant.
Would you give him time to prepare like that?
Yeah.
He's a menace. He just looks so...
he's motivated the post-Breeze life, he knows people are looking at him and saying... I mean, that had to be bad for Belichick last year.
That's what I was going to say.
You know what I mean?
It has to be the exact same feeling Belichick had when Brady left, and then it's like, oh my God,
he
he's
won
winning
the
the
Super Bowl,
and we're not making the playoffs?
Right. I mean...
score one for
Belichick's
Brady
brand, that took a hit.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, internal hit in football, it was kind of like, okay, now we see it was more of the... It was kind of like the Burrow-Orgeron thing. I mean, like, the further you get away from it, you're like, okay, all right. Now I see who is the real leader of the ship.
Is it possible we didn't give Burrow enough credit while he was at LSU? Because that's what it's looking like.
Well, I mean, how much
more?
I don't know where I could fit any more. You know what I mean? I've given him everything that I could offer.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what's crazy because when you're even look what he's doing for the Bengals. He's calling audibles at the line of scrimmage in overtime on 4th down to win the game.
Oh, that OT throw.
He was on Dan Patrick yesterday.
Was he?
And Dan asked him. He was like, "Was that the play called in the huddle?" He goes, "Absolutely not." He's like, "They had double-A pressure up the middle and a nose tackle." He goes, "I mean, I just don't see a very successful run call there, so I made a change." And like the way he says it so nonchalantly, like not like, "Oh, I made a change to a pass play to win the game." He's like, I saw something, so I made a little bit of an audible. He's just so unassuming about it, but it's so drop your dick on the table.
Speaking of dropping your dick on the table, who had Nick Saban's favorite saying to be "D's nuts"?
D's nuts.
Jordan Battle yesterday speaking to the media. This may be his last time he ever speaks to the media in Tuscaloosa, but he did offer up a little of humor on his last time at the podium when asked about some of Saban's favorite sayings. Said he's always saying
Hold these.
These nuts suck on these. I mean, like, just when you think you couldn't love the Don a little bit more, man.
Well, doesn't it scare you that he's being that comfortable?
Well, I mean, people will tell you behind closed doors that he's a pretty cool guy. You know what I mean? Like, I think he takes a real public lashing on the way that he carries himself on the sideline, and people think that that's him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I mean, I think he has done a pretty good job of letting you in. I mean, ESPN routinely goes up to his lake house when they bring the players there and show him kind of driving the boat around and show him laughing with people and enjoying himself.
Well, I'm sure people are going to laugh at whatever Nick Saban says in Alabama. If he's cracking jokes, he gets the media laugh. But you're right. Him just being able to tool around town and be boat guy.
Yeah.
It's like, damn,
he's that guy too.
Like, shit.
Yeah, right. He's that guy too. Wow.
But it's almost gives off.
He says they can't have it all.
It gives off a little Tiger Woods feel from whenever he came back from injury, and then he started kind of being a little bit more jovial around the people that he was hanging out with, as opposed to the very like one-track mind, laser-focused guy that Tiger Woods became synonymous with. But Nick Saban letting us play, because this isn't the first time this has come out in the last few years. I think Tua said the same thing. I mean, they cut it off immediately whenever they talk about it, but Nick Saban must be dropping whole D's for the last 4 years, just at practice.
All right, Brody, have a good day. Sorry we got to cut out of here early. Thank y'all for being here. We are daily brought to you by Falaya Real Estate. Get in touch with Barrett Blondo. Let him help you sell your house today or buy a house. He's changed the way in which that is happening. I got to get over to the school. We'll be back with you throughout the day. Stick around on social media. We'll be announcing when we'll be back with you. Go Chevrolet, bringing you the Jordy Culotta Show every day.